Do you want to talk about this first? What I keep saying
the
first cousin marriage.
Look, let's touch on it briefly. The UK has legalised first cousin marriage basically because the Islamists told them to.
Yes.
That's essentially what it amounts to. It's really badly written and could actually mean that incest is legal as well. What's interesting to me is how commonly ideologies that reject God, reject the created order, arrive at the idea of inbreeding as a method to achieve superiority.
Yep.
And when the biological reality is, of course, it's the opposite. If you were just breeding purely for strength of genetic stock, you would try and match up breeding pairs that are as diverse as possible.
Yeah.
That's an area where diversity really is strength, right? Diversity of genetic input into a child means you're far less likely to have a genetic expression of some sort of a congenital condition. So if you have first cousins marrying, there's approximately a 6% chance that they're going to have a serious deformity of some sort as a result of a congenital defect that was shared between their gene codes that then gets passed down to the child. The Nazis famously, of course, were trying to breed the master race. They were getting the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tall, blah, blah, blah people, breeding them together in their camps. This is something that's probably not spoken about enough, they literally were trying to breed a master race through inbreeding, and their results were exactly what you would expect them to be. Charles Darwin himself actually married his first cousin.
Yes.
Now, he was someone who obviously was studying nature and studying breeding and studying all of that. And after he'd married her and then started to have kids, and particularly after his first child died when she was 10, he began to realize that as he did his experiments in his greenhouse, his plants needed new genetic input. He couldn't just keep breeding the same plants, and generations of the same plants between each other. It went horribly wrong. And he began to question, and this is on record in letters that he wrote, he began to say, I think there's a problem here.
Yeah.
Now, they had 10 children together, him and his wife, who was his first cousin. They had 10 children, 3 of which died at age 10 or younger. Now, that's not actually extraordinary because tragically, correct, 25% mortality rate was roughly what was expected. So he was at 30%. That's within the reasonable, obviously you can't have 2.5 kids die out of 10. So that's exactly what you would expect. What's more significant is that 6 of his kids went on to get married and have long-term marriages, and 3 of them never had kids, 2 of which we know tried and wanted to have kids, one of which we presume probably would have had kids had they been biologically capable. So it would appear that half of his surviving children were sterile.
Yeah, wow.
Right? This is what happens when you inbreed. This is what happens when first cousins inbreed. There are certain parts of the world that have a very well-known wandering eye, lazy eye issue. That's a product of inbreeding. People talk about the royal families of Europe being kind of a bit weird. Yeah, a lot of inbreeding.
Yeah.
Multiple generations. They were all trying to marry each other, and sooner or later, if your family keeps on marrying with the other family for long enough, shit starts to get weird.
Yeah.
Inbreeding is a massive problem, and there is a reason why there is a prohibition on marrying your first cousin. Now, interestingly, I think this is a really great argument for creation, because inbreeding and cousins marrying has become a bigger problem as time has gone on. You go back in history, and actually brothers and sisters were able to get married and not have the kinds of problems that we see out of that today. Why? Well, because they didn't have as many copying errors. The defect part of the congenital defect hadn't kicked in as much.
Yeah.
Every single time we copy our genetic code, some errors happen. Now, you get a copy from your mum, a copy from your dad. If they don't have the same error, then usually your body will express the genes that don't have the error. They will usually express the healthy ones. But if all you get is the broken gene, if you get the same broken gene from both parents, well, it doesn't have that option. It's going to express the broken gene.
Yeah.
The chance of having the same copying error from 2 disparate parents from 2 completely different family lines is extremely slim.
Yeah.
The chance of having the same copying error from a brother and a sister is extremely high. So you go back far enough in time before the errors had begun to come into our genetic code. And brothers and sisters marrying, Adam and Eve, people say, oh, well, they had sons. Who did their sons marry? Their sisters.
Yeah.
Sorry, sounds gross to us today, would cause all kinds of congenital problems if we did it today. But back then, the defect part of genetic defect hadn't kicked in.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, and there may come a point, if human history progresses for long enough, there may come a point where it's necessary to actually say, no, you can't marry your second cousin either.
Yeah.
Because our genetic code is not getting better, it's getting weaker.
Yes.
So this sort of a law, this is again what we talked about before. you want to come here, that's fine. You adapt to our cultural expectations as expressed through our laws. We're not going to change our laws to allow first cousin marriage with all the extra strain that's going to put on their socialised healthcare system, with all of the other issues that's going to generate. This is a capitulation. It's shameful and it shouldn't happen.
I've got some stats here. So in Pakistan, 65% of the population has entered into a first cousin marriage. That seems really high, 65%. Saudi Arabia, 50%, Afghanistan, 40%, Iran, 30%, Egypt and Turkey, 20%, and in rural areas of Pakistan, up to 80%.
Yeah.
In the West, it's less than 1%. So this is a cultural thing. This is a Muslim thing.
Yeah, and they view that as sort of keeping it in the family, so to speak. And again, it's this idea of superiority. It is racism, and so in a lot of these cultures, what we don't understand in the West, a lot of these cultures have racism expressed actually down to an individual family level. It's not actually so much about the race and the colour of their skin. It's I'm this family and you're that family.
Yeah.
We did see that in England during the your Elizabethan eras, etc., where you had your high families and your low families. There was a lot of inbreeding amongst the high status families. There's a lot of inbreeding amongst Indian Brahmin families and so forth. There's only so many of them.
Yeah.
Right? And they're all trying to stay amongst themselves because they think that that's their superiority.
Bye-bye.
Sorry.
They think that's something they want to protect. Keep it in the family. Well, sure, if you want to keep family wealth in the family, okay, do that. But I suggest you want to intermingle your genetic stock as widely as is reasonably possible if that's your concern. And first cousin marriage, the more it happens, and it's a compounding effect.
Yeah.
If you've had multiple generations of first cousin marriage happening now, you are multiplying. It's almost exponential, the number of copying errors that are now being baked into that DNA. And the only way to eliminate that would be to have one of those individuals marry someone of completely different genetic heritage.
Yeah.
Try and find someone that probably separated 100 generations ago genetically.
Yeah.
And if they were to have kids, then hopefully the healthy genes would be copied into the kids. And you could potentially sort of clean up the genes that way. But you don't clean up genetic stock by marrying someone who's got the same copying errors as you. The Nazis proved it, Darwin proved it, and I'm sorry, but a lot of Near East Asia is proving it too.
There was an article from the NHS, which is the UK's National Health Service, where it talks about there are benefits despite birth defect risk. And a lot of those benefits were essentially like you have a good support system because you share the same grandparents. Mm-hmm. Like it's actually really sick.
Really, literally retroactively trying to justify something that they've decided is morally good because it's a them thing, not an us thing.
And the more I looked into it, like it's actually really dark. Like you look at the defects and like mentally incapacitated, like physically.
But that's okay. You've got the same grandparents, so you'll get good support.
You'll be fine.
You'll get good support for
it's
your
actually
mental
really sick.
Incapacity.
Really sick.
But this also brings me back to what I said before, how Islam, Marxism and fascism are just so much exactly the same ideology. A lot of your white supremacist people, they're all about the inbreeding. You've got to keep the white race with the right race. They're all about, maybe not down to first cousins, although I'm sure many of them wouldn't be past it, but they're also about minor attracted. And you look at the history of Islam and you look at the current day Islamic countries. Very happy to have young girls being farmed off to dirty old men. You listen to what the NSN are saying in Melbourne and sort of what white supremacists are saying around the world. They're trying to break that age barrier down and get access to younger girls. Not every single individual, but within that movement, there's a pretty strong sub-push towards that. Marxists are broadly the same. You look at Lenin and his sex life and what he did.
I find it weird that this is going on whilst we're also transing kids and
it's all part of the same thing.
Castrating them.
It's all part of the same thing. It's the rejection of God's design and God's identity, and it's the death cult.
Yeah,
that is, and the death cult is the result of the rejection of identity. They're all different expressions of the exact same phenomena, which is we have to do everything in our power to reject and obviously reject as far as possible any idea that this universe and humans were designed and given purpose in any way, shape, or form. We have to systematically break that down, reject it, get away from it as far as possible, uglify away from beauty, masculinize away from femininity, and vice versa. We androgynize everybody. We have to get as far away from as possible from any kind of design and purpose, because design and purpose require God, and we don't want there to be a God.
Well, like a true masochist, you are back again to watch another segment of the Oddcast. So at this point, you should probably be subscribing and telling every single person in your life about the Oddcast, because let's be honest, we've got a lot of work to do and we need to get together and suffer through this torture, because there's nothing like fighting against our government with some good mates by your side. So much like a Bunnings sausage, we are going to become a staple in your life, and we'd very much appreciate that you go and support us via the Buy Us a Coffee button or buy some sweet merch. Also very appreciated. And join us next week. We'd appreciate it.